Get out! These people don't belong here! The words slice through the crowded diner. A white waitress with bleached hair towers over a young black woman sitting alone in a corner booth. 6 months pregnant, the woman wears a simple blue dress, her wedding ring catching the afternoon light. The waitress slams a glass of water down so hard it splashes across the table. Ice cubes scatter onto the woman's lap, soaking through her dress. She gasps, instinctively protecting her belly. "You heard me! Find somewhere else to sit!" The pregnant woman looks up, confusion in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." Without warning, the waitress's hand flies across the woman's face. The impact sends her head snapping to the side. Her cheek explodes in red fingerprints. Silence blankets the entire restaurant. Every customer freezes. Cell phones emerge from pockets, cameras rolling. Have you ever seen someone's prejudice blind them to the storm coming their way? 3 months earlier, downtown Atlanta pulses with Tuesday afternoon energy. The Georgia sun beats down on cracked sidewalks where business suits mix with construction hard hats. Car horns blend with jackhammer rhythms. The smell of hot asphalt and blooming magnolias hangs thick in the humid air. The Peachtree Diner sits on the corner of 5th and Main, a relic from the 1980s with red vinyl booths and black and white checkered floors. Ceiling fans spin lazily overhead, fighting the oppressive heat. The neon "Open" sign flickers intermittently, casting pink shadows through dust-streaked windows. Serena Williams Thompson steps through the glass door, the cool blast of air conditioning hitting her like a wave. At 28, she carries herself with quiet confidence despite being 6 months pregnant. Her navy blue dress flows over her growing belly, and her natural hair frames a face that radiates intelligence. The briefcase in her hand contains files that could change lives, civil rights cases she's prosecuting as an assistant U.S. attorney. She chose this diner for a reason. 3 years ago, Detective Captain James Thompson proposed to her right here in Booth 7. Today marks their anniversary, and she's planning to surprise him when his shift ends. The diamond on her finger sparkles as she touches her belly, thinking about their unborn daughter. The lunch crowd fills most tables. Construction workers occupy the counter, their yellow hard hats lined up like sentries beside coffee cups. A table of business people huddles over contracts, their voices hushed and urgent. 2 elderly men play checkers in the back corner, sharing a slice of peach pie between moves. Behind the counter, Brenda Kowalski wipes glasses with mechanical precision. 45 years old, with bottle blonde hair showing dark roots, she's worked here for 8 years since her messy divorce. Her pale blue uniform stretches tight across her frame, and her name tag hangs crooked above a permanent scowl. She eyes Serena with immediate suspicion. The neighborhood itself tells a story of change. Luxury condos rise where family homes once stood. Coffee shops with names like Artisan Brew replace corner stores that served the community for decades. Young professionals with designer handbags walk past longtime residents who can no longer afford the rising rents. The Peachtree Diner has become a battleground between old and new, black and white, us and them. Serena slides into a middle booth, the worn vinyl sighing under her weight. She pulls out her phone and scrolls through case files, testimonies from victims of workplace discrimination, evidence of systemic racism that she'll present to federal juries. The irony isn't lost on her that she spends her days fighting the very prejudice that now watches her from behind the counter. The diner's atmosphere carries subtle tensions. A black family with 3 children sits near the kitchen, their server taking forever to return with their order. An elderly white couple by the window receives constant attention, their coffee cups never empty. The patterns are invisible to most, but Serena's trained eye catches every detail. Brenda approaches with obvious reluctance, her footsteps heavy against the checkered floor. She doesn't make eye contact as she slams a sticky menu onto the table. The plastic cover is cracked, and several pages stick together with dried syrup. "Kitchen's back up. You'll be waiting a while," Brenda announces, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Her tone suggests this is somehow Serena's fault. Serena maintains her professional composure, the same calm demeanor she uses in courtrooms. "That's fine. Could I just have some lemonade and a small garden salad? I'm not very hungry today." Morning sickness has been brutal lately, but she needs something in her stomach. Brenda's eye roll is theatrical. "Figures. Probably counting every penny." She turns away without writing down the order, muttering just loud enough to be heard. The comment hangs in the air like smoke. Other customers glance over, some uncomfortable, others pretending not to notice. Serena feels the familiar weight of being watched, judged, and found wanting based solely on her appearance. But she's faced worse in federal courtrooms. She can handle one bitter waitress. She checks her phone. 2:15 p.m. James should arrive by 3:30, giving them time to celebrate before dinner. She imagines his surprise when he sees her here, in the place where their love story began. The thought makes her smile despite Brenda's hostility. The diner continues its rhythm around her. Orders called out, register keys punching, ice clinking in glasses, normal sounds of normal life, unaware that everything is about to change. Brenda returns 20 minutes later carrying a cup of black coffee instead of lemonade. She sets it down with deliberate force, the dark liquid sloshing over the rim and staining the already grimy table. The bitter smell rises between them like a challenge. "This isn't what I ordered," Serena says politely, her prosecutor's training keeping her voice level. "I asked for lemonade and a garden salad." Brenda plants her hands on her hips, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Oh, I'm sorry, Princess. This isn't the Ritz-Carlton. You get what you get." She emphasizes each word like she's talking to a child. The nearby tables grow quiet. Michael Brooks, a businessman in a crisp gray suit, glances up from his laptop. He's seen this before, the subtle aggression, the deliberate disrespect. His phone sits ready on the table beside his coffee cup, steam still rising from the black surface. "I understand mistakes happen," Serena responds calmly, her hand resting protectively on her belly. "But I'm pregnant and can't drink coffee. Could you please bring me lemonade instead?" Brenda's laugh is sharp and ugly. "Pregnant again? How many baby daddies are there now?" The words slice through the diner's ambient noise. Conversations at nearby tables stop completely. Forks pause halfway to mouths. The elderly couple by the window turns to stare openly. Heat rises in Serena's cheeks, but she maintains her composure. Years of facing hostile defense attorneys have taught her to control her reactions. "Excuse me, but that's completely inappropriate. I'd like to speak with your manager, please." "Manager's not here, sweetheart." Brenda crosses her arms, blocking Serena's view of the rest of the diner. "It's just me and the cook, and he barely speaks English. So you can either drink your coffee or leave. Your choice, Mrs. Dorothy Washington, a 70-year-old black woman who's been coming here for decades, watches from her corner table. She's seen this pattern before, the deliberate poor service, the veiled insults, the way certain customers get treated like unwelcome intruders. Her weathered hands grip her coffee cup tighter. The ceramic feels warm against her palms, a small comfort in an increasingly uncomfortable situation. Serena tries a different approach. "Look, I just want some lemonade and a salad. I'll pay whatever you charge. I'm not trying to cause any trouble." "Trouble?" Brenda's voice rises, ensuring everyone can hear. "You people always claim you're not causing trouble right before you start demanding free stuff and threatening to call lawyers." She makes air quotes around the word lawyers like it's a joke. Her bleached hair catches the overhead fluorescent light, making her pale skin look almost ghostly. The pregnant woman's patience frays slightly. "I never said anything about lawyers or free food. I simply want to order lunch." "Right." Brenda rolls her eyes dramatically. "Let me guess. You'll order the most expensive thing on the menu, eat half of it, then complain it wasn't cooked right so you don't have to pay. I've seen this act before." Two college students at a nearby booth exchange uncomfortable glances. The girl, wearing a University of Georgia sweatshirt, pulls out her phone and starts recording discreetly, sensing something ugly brewing. Her boyfriend shifts nervously in the cracked vinyl seat, unsure whether to intervene. The smell of fried onions from the kitchen mingles with the tension in the air. Serena's legal mind catalogs each interaction. The discriminatory service, the racial assumptions, the hostile work environment being created for other customers. But she's not here as a prosecutor today. She's here as a pregnant woman trying to have lunch and surprise her husband on their anniversary. "Ma'am, I think you have the wrong impression. I'm actually..." "Actually what?" Brenda interrupts, stepping closer. "Actually, do you think you're better than everyone else? Actually think this neighborhood belongs to you now?" Her voice grows louder with each word. "Well, Let me tell you something, honey. Some of us have been working hard our whole lives while your kind has been looking for handouts. The silence that follows is deafening. Even the kitchen sounds seem muted. The construction workers at the counter stare openly now. One older man with calloused hands shakes his head in disgust, but nobody speaks up. The ceiling fans continue their lazy rotation, pushing stale air around the suddenly suffocating space. Serena feels her daughter kick, a strong, defiant movement that reminds her what she's protecting. She takes a deep breath and tries once more. I think we got off on the wrong foot. My name is Serena. I'd just like to order some food and wait for my husband. Your husband? Brenda's laugh is cruel and sharp. Let me guess, he's white, right? That's why you think you can come into our neighborhood acting all high and mighty. Got yourself knocked up by some rich white boy and now you think you're special? The assumption hits like a physical blow. Serena's hand trembles slightly as she reaches for her purse. The leather feels smooth against her fingers, a tangible reminder of the life she's built through hard work and determination. I'm going to pay for the coffee and leave. This is obviously not the right place for me. Oh no, you don't. Brenda steps closer, her voice turning threatening. The smell of cheap perfume mixed with grease clings to her uniform. You order something, you pay for it. That's $4.50 for the coffee plus tip, and I expect a good tip since you've wasted so much of my time with your attitude. Michael Brooks finally acts, pulling out his phone and hitting record. The red light blinks as he captures Brenda's increasingly aggressive behavior. Other customers notice and follow suit. In seconds, multiple phones document the escalating confrontation. The college girl adjusts her angle to get better footage. Serena opens her wallet, her movements careful and deliberate. Fine, here's $10, keep the change. She places the bill on the wet table, coffee immediately soaking into the corners. The money darkens as the liquid spreads across Andrew Jackson's face, but Brenda isn't finished. She grabs the soggy bill and examines it closely. Fancy wallet for someone who can barely afford coffee. Where'd you get it? A 5-finger discount at some department store? Her eyes narrow as she studies Serena's credit cards visible in the open wallet. Actually, looking at you again, I bet that baby isn't even your husband's. Probably some rich white man's kid, and now you're trying to pass it off as legitimate. The words are vile, calculated to inflict maximum damage. That's what you people do, right? Get pregnant and find some sucker to pay the bills. The entire diner holds its breath. Even the elderly checkers players have stopped their game to stare. The construction workers look uncomfortable, but none intervene. The business people pretend to focus on their papers while clearly listening to every word. A young mother covers her child's ears and whispers for him to look away. Serena stands slowly, one hand supporting her back, the other protecting her belly. Her voice remains steady despite the tears threatening to fall. You don't know anything about me or my family. I know enough, Brenda sneers. I know your type comes in here thinking you own the place, demanding special treatment and playing the victim when you don't get your way. Well, this is still America, and we don't have to pretend to like it. The mask has completely fallen away now. The veneer of customer service has dissolved, revealing the raw hatred underneath. Mrs. Washington finally stands up, her age-spotted hands shaking with anger, but Serena catches her eye and shakes her head slightly. The last thing she wants is for this elderly woman to get hurt defending her. Serena gathers her purse and briefcase, moving toward the door with as much dignity as she can muster. Her heels click against the checkered floor, each step echoing in the tense silence. But Brenda has one more card to play. Actually, hold on there, princess. Her voice turns official, authoritative. I think we need to have a little talk about those credit cards I saw in your wallet. Funny how someone like you can afford such fancy plastic. Rebecca Williams, even your real name. The implication hangs heavy in the air like smoke from the kitchen grill. Now, it's not just about poor service or racial slurs, it's about accusations of theft. The situation has crossed a line from uncomfortable to dangerous, and everyone in the diner knows it. The afternoon sun streaming through dirty windows seems harsher now, illuminating a scene that should never happen in 2024 America. Brenda blocks Serena's path to the exit, her body forming a human barrier between the pregnant woman and the door. The afternoon sunlight streams through the glass, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. The smell of bacon grease and burnt coffee grows stronger, mixing with the tension that now fills every corner of the diner. "Where do you think you're going?" Brenda's voice carries new authority, as if she's suddenly transformed from waitress to security guard. "Nobody leaves without settling their bill properly, and I think we need to verify those credit cards before you walk out of here." Serena's heart pounds against her ribs. She can feel her daughter moving restlessly inside her, responding to the stress hormones flooding her system. "I already paid you $10 for a $4.50 coffee. That's more than enough. That was before I saw those fancy cards in your wallet." Brenda reaches out and snatches Serena's purse before she can react. The leather bag dangles from the waitress's pale fingers like evidence at a crime scene. "Let's just make sure everything's on the up and up here." The violation feels worse than the slurs. Serena's voice sharpens with the authority she uses in federal courtrooms. "You have no right to take my personal property. Give me back my purse immediately." "Oh, listen to that," Brenda announces to the room, her voice dripping with mockery. Now she sounds all educated and official. Funny how that accent comes and goes, isn't it? Must have learned that from watching TV lawyers. She dangles the purse higher, just out of Serena's reach. Michael Brooks's recording captures every moment. His business training tells him to stay neutral, but his conscience wars with his caution. The red recording light blinks steadily as Brenda dumps the purse's contents onto the counter with deliberate malice. The sound of items scattering echoes through the silent diner like marbles hitting concrete. Serena's belongings spread across the stained surface like pieces of her dignity. Car keys land next to prenatal vitamins with a metallic clink. Her work ID slides under a napkin dispenser. Credit cards fan out beside lip balm and receipts, the intimate contents of her life now displayed for strangers to judge and assess. Well, what do we have here? Brenda picks up each item like she's conducting an investigation. BMW car keys. That's a fancy ride for someone who counts pennies. And look at these credit cards. American Express Black Card. Honey, you either stole these or you're servicing some very rich white men for pocket money. The accusation hits the diner like a shockwave. "Mrs. Washington gasps audibly from her corner table, her coffee cup rattling against its saucer. The college students lean forward, their phones capturing every cruel word. Even the cook emerges from the kitchen, drawn by the commotion, his face confused behind wire-rimmed glasses. Serena reaches for her scattered belongings, but Brenda slaps her hand away. The sharp crack echoes through the silence like a gunshot. Red marks bloom across Serena's knuckles like angry fingerprints. She cradles her stinging hand against her chest, protecting both it and her unborn child from further assault. "Did I say you could touch your stuff?" Brenda's voice turns venomous, her pale face flushed with the power she believes she holds. "For all I know, every single thing in here is stolen. These cards, this fancy jewelry, even that designer handbag. Probably walked out of some department store when nobody was looking." She picks up Serena's wedding ring, which had slipped off during the struggle. The diamond catches the fluorescent light, throwing tiny rainbows across the counter. Probably lifted this from some jewelry store, too. 3-carat rock like this? No way you bought it legitimately. The business people at their corner table finally look up from their papers. A woman in a navy blazer pulls out her phone, her manicured fingers dialing what looks like 911. But she hesitates, thumb hovering over the call button, unsure if this qualifies as an emergency or just an unpleasant social situation that might resolve itself. "Please?" Serena's voice cracks slightly, exhaustion seeping through her professional composure. "Just give me my things back. I haven't done anything wrong. I just wanted lunch." "Nothing wrong?" Brenda's laugh is harsh and grating like nails on a chalkboard. "You came into my workplace, disrupted my customers, demanded special treatment like you owned the place, and now you're trying to leave without proper payment." "That sounds like plenty wrong to me, Princess." She picks up Serena's work ID but holds it face down without reading it. Her prejudice has created such tunnel vision that she can't see past her own assumptions. The federal prosecutor badge that could end this entire nightmare sits inches from her ignorant fingers, but hatred has blinded her to obvious truth. "Rebecca Williams, huh?" Brenda squints at the back of the ID card. Bet this is fake, too. Probably bought it online from some scammer in China. You people always have fake IDs with fake names to match your fake credit cards. The irony burns through Serena's chest like acid. Her federal prosecutor credentials, which represent years of law school, bar exams, and climbing the justice system ladder, sit dismissed as counterfeit by someone who can't even read them properly. "I'm calling the police," Brenda announces dramatically, reaching for the diner's landline phone with theatrical flair. "We'll let them sort out what's real and what's stolen. They're real good at dealing with situations like this. Know exactly how to handle troublemakers." The dial tone buzzes through the speaker as she punches in 911. Every number beeps loudly in the tense silence. Serena feels trapped between the counter and this woman's escalating madness, like an animal cornered by a predator. Her daughter kicks frantically as if sensing the danger surrounding them both. 911, what's your emergency?" The dispatcher's voice crackles through the phone's speaker, official and professional. "Yes, this is Brenda at the Peachtree Diner on 5th Street. I need the police here immediately." Her voice transforms into something sweet and vulnerable for the dispatcher, a complete personality change. "I've got a black female trying to use stolen credit cards, and when I confronted her, she became aggressive and threatening toward me and other customers." She pauses for dramatic effect, letting the lies sink into the official record. "She's pregnant, so she might be on drugs or something. You need to send someone right away. I'm scared she might get violent." The false report hangs in the air like poison gas. Every customer in the diner knows they've witnessed perjury in real time. The college girl's recording captures every lying word. Mrs. Washington shakes her head in disgust, finally understanding the full scope of what's unfolding before her weathered eyes. Serena feels sharp pains shoot through her abdomen. Stress-induced contractions grip her belly like iron bands, tightening and releasing in waves. She grips the counter edge, her knuckles white against the dark laminate. Fear for her baby's safety now overshadows her own humiliation and anger. "Oh, now you're faking pregnancy complications?" Brenda's voice drips with cruel satisfaction, watching Serena's obvious distress with glee. "Let me guess, next you'll claim I attacked you or violated your civil rights or some other sob story. I've seen this victim act before, sweetheart." She hangs up the phone with theatrical flair, slamming the receiver down hard enough to make nearby glasses rattle. "Police will be here in 5 minutes. Then we'll see who's telling the truth and who's running elaborate scams on hard-working Americans." Brenda confiscates Serena's car keys, dangling them like a trophy of victory. The BMW fob swings back and forth hypnotically. "Can't have you driving off in your stolen luxury car before the law arrives to sort this mess out properly." The trap has sprung completely now. Serena realizes she's effectively imprisoned by this woman's lies and hatred, held captive by false accusations and racial animus. The other customers shift uncomfortably in their seats, but none intervene. The bystander effect paralyzes them all. Easier to record than to act, safer to watch than to engage with ugly reality. Brenda continues her psychological assault, emboldened by her perceived power and the approaching sirens. "You know what I think? I think you're one of those welfare queens who've learned to dress up nice and play victim when you get caught red-handed. Probably have 5 other babies at home with 5 different fathers, all collecting government checks. Each word is calculated to inflict maximum damage, designed to strip away dignity and humanity." Serena's hands shake as another contraction grips her belly. She needs to sit down, needs water, needs this nightmare to end before her stress harms her unborn daughter. "And that innocent act? Please. I've seen plenty of your kind come through here acting all sweet and helpless while they're planning their next scam or lawsuit. Well, not today. Today you picked the wrong hard-working American to mess with." The distant sound of sirens begins to penetrate the diner's walls, growing steadily louder. Whether they're coming here or heading somewhere else, the approaching wail adds another layer of tension to an already explosive situation. Serena closes her eyes and thinks of James, wishing desperately that she'd chosen any other restaurant for their anniversary surprise. The diner's front door explodes open with enough force to rattle the windows. Detective Captain James Thompson fills the doorway like a storm front, his 6'4" frame blocking out the afternoon sun. His crisp white uniform shirt stretches across broad shoulders, gold captain's bars gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The leather of his duty belt creaks as he steps inside, his presence immediately commanding every eye in the room. His dark eyes scan the scene with trained precision. 20 years of police work have taught him to read situations instantly. He sees his wife cornered against the counter, her belongings scattered like crime scene evidence. Her left cheek bears the unmistakable red outline of a handprint. Her protective stance over her pregnant belly tells him everything he needs to know. "Serena?" His voice cuts through the silence like a blade, quiet but carrying absolute authority. The single word contains layers of concern, rage, and barely controlled power. Every customer feels the shift in atmosphere, like pressure dropping before a tornado. Brenda, still riding high on her perceived victory, doesn't notice the captain's insignia or the way every person in the diner has suddenly focused on this new arrival. She assumes he's just another responding officer sent to validate her lies and arrest her victim. "Finally!" she exclaims with theatrical relief, turning toward James with a triumphant smile. "Officer, I called about this criminal trying to use stolen credit cards. She got violent when I confronted her, started making threats, and now she's faking pregnancy complications for sympathy." James moves with deliberate calm toward his wife, his polished boots clicking against the checkered floor. Each step echoes like a countdown timer. He notices the multiple phone recording, the scattered belongings, the way other customers avoid eye contact. His jaw tightens imperceptibly. "Are you hurt?" he asks Serena softly, his voice a stark contrast to the authority he projects. His large hand hovers near her reddened cheek without touching, letting her decide if she wants comfort or space. "Is the baby okay?" The tenderness in his tone makes several customers gasp. This isn't how officers typically address suspected criminals. Brenda's smile falters slightly as she watches the interaction, confusion creeping into her confident expression. "James, Serena's voice cracks with relief and residual fear. "She wouldn't let me leave. She took my purse and called the police with false accusations." "Officer, don't let her manipulate you," Brenda interrupts desperately, sensing something shifting but not understanding what. "These people are good at playing the victim. She's probably telling you some sob story right now, but I saw everything. She tried to use fake credit cards." James slowly turns his attention to Brenda. His movement is predatory, controlled, like a lion finally focusing on the gazelle that's been making too much noise. When their eyes meet, she takes an involuntary step backward. "Ma'am," his voice drops to a dangerous whisper, "I need you to step away from my wife and her belongings. Right now." The word wife hangs in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Brenda's face cycles through confusion, realization, and mounting horror in the span of 3 seconds. Her mouth opens and closes soundlessly as her brain struggles to process this new information. James pulls out his badge wallet with practiced efficiency and places it on the counter next to Serena's scattered belongings. Detective Captain James Thompson, Atlanta Police Department. The gold shield gleams under the lights, official and undeniable. Next to it, he carefully places Serena's work ID that Brenda had carelessly tossed aside. Serena Williams Thompson, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Civil Rights Division. The two credentials side by side tell the complete story that Brenda's prejudice had blinded her to seeing. The silence in the diner becomes absolute. Even the kitchen sounds cease. Mrs. Washington actually smiles for the first time all afternoon. Michael Brooks's recording captures the exact moment when Brenda's world collapses. The college students stare in amazement at the dramatic reversal unfolding before them. I didn't know." Brenda's voice becomes small and shaky, all her earlier confidence evaporating like steam. "This is all a misunderstanding. She never said she was. I thought she was." "You thought she was what?" James's question cuts like ice. "A criminal because she's black? A fraud because she's pregnant? Help me understand your thought process here." Two patrol officers burst through the door, Officers Martinez and Davis, both breathing hard from running. They immediately recognize their captain and stop short, confusion written across their faces. This isn't the scene they expected from the 911 call. "Captain Thompson?" Officer Martinez looks around the diner, trying to understand why their superior is at what dispatch described as a credit card fraud call. "We got a report of a disturbance." James nods toward his wife, his voice returning to professional calm. The victim of multiple assaults is Assistant U.S. Attorney Williams Thompson. The perpetrator is the woman behind the counter. Brenda's legs begin to shake visibly. She grabs the counter for support as the full weight of her actions crashes down on her. She hasn't just assaulted a pregnant woman, she's assaulted a federal prosecutor whose husband is a police captain. Her face goes pale as paper. "Please, I'm sorry," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean... This is all just a big misunderstanding. I was having a bad day and I took it out on the wrong person." The wrong person? Serena speaks for the first time since James arrived, her prosecutor's voice steady and clear. "You mean there was a right person to assault and falsely accuse?" James places a protective hand on his wife's shoulder while addressing his officers. "We need to secure all video evidence from the security cameras and collect witness statements. Mr. Brooks," he nods toward the businessman still recording, "I'll need a copy of your video for evidence." The complete reversal is breathtaking. In less than 5 minutes, Brenda has gone from feeling powerful and in control to facing multiple felony charges. The phones that captured her hatred will now document her downfall. Justice has arrived wearing a police captain's uniform, and there's nowhere left to hide. Officer Martinez approaches Brenda with handcuffs already in hand, the metal glinting under the diner's harsh lights. Her face has turned ashen, and sweat beads on her forehead despite the air conditioning. The smell of fear mingles with the lingering aroma of fried food as reality crashes down around her. "Brenda Kowalski, you're under arrest for assault and battery, false imprisonment, filing a false police report, and civil rights violations," Martinez recites in a clear, professional voice. The Miranda rights echo through the silent diner as every customer watches the woman who terrorized a pregnant stranger get led away in chains. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The familiar words take on new weight as Brenda's hands are pulled behind her back. The handcuffs click shut with finality. Brenda's voice becomes increasingly desperate and shrill. "Mrs. Thompson, please. I'm so sorry. I didn't know who you were. I was having the worst day of my life. My ex-husband stopped paying child support, and I haven't slept in weeks." Her excuses tumble out in a frantic stream. "Please, I have children to support. This job is all I have." James maintains his professional composure while addressing her pleas with ice-cold authority. "Ma'am, your apologies are noted for the record, but they don't undo the assault on my pregnant wife or the multiple civil rights violations you committed in front of numerous witnesses." Officer Davis methodically photographs Serena's injuries. The red handprint still visible on her cheek, the marks on her knuckles where Brenda struck her hand. Each flash of the camera documents evidence that will seal Brenda's fate in court. The clinical precision of police work transforms personal trauma into legal ammunition. Captain Thompson coordinates with his officers like the seasoned professional he is. "We need to impound the diner's security system and collect all recorded evidence. The cameras in the corners captured everything, and we have multiple civilian recordings from different angles." Michael Brooks steps forward, his business card ready. "Captain, I recorded the entire incident from when she first became verbally abusive. I'm happy to provide this as evidence." His phone contains 23 minutes of clear video showing Brenda's escalating attacks on an innocent, pregnant woman. Mrs. Washington approaches slowly, her weathered hands shaking with righteous anger. "Officer, I've been coming to this diner for 30 years, and I saw everything that poor child endured. That woman used language I won't repeat and treated her like dirt from the moment she walked in." The diner's manager, Tony Kowalski, bursts through the kitchen doors after receiving frantic calls from the cook. When he sees his cousin in handcuffs and learns what happened, his face drains of all color. The family resemblance is unmistakable, the same pale complexion and sharp features. "Oh God, Brenda, what have you done?" His voice cracks with horror and disbelief. He immediately turns to Serena and James, his hands clasped in desperate supplication. "Captain Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, I am so deeply sorry. This does not represent our values at all." Tony's damage control efforts pour out in a torrent of panic. "Brenda is terminated immediately, effective this instant. We will cooperate fully with your investigation and do everything possible to make this right. Please, is there anything at all we can do?" James calls for paramedics despite Serena's protests that she's fine. I need EMTs to check on both my wife and the baby. This level of stress could have serious medical consequences. The approaching ambulance sirens add another layer of official response to what started as a simple lunch. EMT Sarah Johnson arrives within minutes, her medical bag ready. She conducts a thorough examination while other customers watch anxiously. Blood pressure is elevated due to stress, but the baby's heartbeat is strong and steady, she reports with professional calm. I recommend immediate follow-up with your obstetrician. Word spreads quickly through social media as customers share videos of the incident. Local news stations start calling the diner after seeing viral posts with hashtags like #JusticeServed and #PregnantAndAttacked. James realizes they need to control the narrative before it spirals beyond their control. He makes a brief statement to the growing crowd of reporters gathering outside. This was an unprovoked assault on a pregnant woman that will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of both state and federal law. We have overwhelming evidence and multiple witnesses. Serena contacts her supervisor at the U.S. Attorney's Office from the ambulance. Given her position prosecuting civil rights cases, this assault takes on federal significance. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rodriguez assures her that the Civil Rights Division will review everything for potential federal charges. Tony officially fires Brenda in front of the remaining customers and officers. Brenda Kowalski, you are terminated for assault, creating a hostile environment and bringing shame to this establishment. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Do not return to these premises. The public firing adds humiliation to her mounting legal troubles. Brenda is transported to Fulton County Jail for booking. The charges include simple assault, aggravated assault due to Serena's pregnancy, false imprisonment, filing false police reports, and civil rights violations. Bond is set at $50,000 given the severity and hate crime nature of the offenses. The legal machinery begins grinding toward justice with unstoppable momentum. Within 48 hours, the FBI's Civil Rights Division opens a federal investigation into the incident. Special Agent Patricia Williams, a seasoned investigator with 15 years of experience prosecuting hate crimes, takes personal charge of the case. The viral nature of the videos and Serena's position as a federal prosecutor handling civil rights cases elevates this from a local incident to a federal priority. The story explodes across national media like wildfire. Federal prosecutor assaulted while pregnant. Viral video shows shocking restaurant attack dominates news cycles from CNN to Fox News. The contrast between Brenda's racist assumptions and the reality of Serena's distinguished career becomes a powerful symbol of systemic prejudice and unconscious bias plaguing America. Social media amplifies the outrage exponentially. The hashtag #JusticeForSerena trends nationally within hours. Celebrity activists share the video with millions of followers. The footage of a pregnant federal prosecutor being slapped by a racist waitress becomes a rallying cry for civil rights organizations across the country. The Atlanta community organizes massive rallies supporting Serena and demanding comprehensive justice. The NAACP, Southern Poverty Law Center, and dozens of other civil rights organizations call for maximum prosecution under both state and federal law. Reverend Dr. Marcus King leads a peaceful protest outside the courthouse, drawing hundreds of supporters carrying signs reading "Justice for Serena" and "End Restaurant Racism." The Fulton County Grand Jury convenes in an emergency session and indicts Brenda on multiple felony charges. Aggravated assault targeting a pregnant woman carries enhanced penalties under Georgia law. Civil rights violations, false imprisonment, and filing false police reports add to her mounting legal troubles. Each charge carries potential years in state prison. The federal grand jury adds even more serious charges under 18 U.S.C. 245 federal civil rights violations that carry potential sentences of up to 10 years in federal prison. The Department of Justice makes clear that hate crimes against federal prosecutors will be prosecuted with zero tolerance and maximum penalties. Brenda's family scrapes together money for Marcus Steele, a private attorney specializing in defending hate crime cases. Steele immediately recognizes the uphill battle ahead, given the overwhelming video evidence and multiple credible witnesses. He advises Brenda that pleading guilty and hoping for mercy might be her only realistic option. District Attorney Jennifer Park, known for her tough stance on hate crimes, refuses initial plea offers that would result in minimal jail time. This wasn't just an assault. It was a racially motivated attack on a pregnant federal prosecutor. she announces at a packed press conference. The community demands accountability, and that's exactly what they'll receive. Plea negotiations stall completely as Brenda's legal team pushes desperately for community service and probation. The prosecution's evidence grows stronger daily as more witnesses come forward and additional video footage surfaces from different angles throughout the diner. Serena files a comprehensive federal civil rights lawsuit against both Brenda and the Peachtree Diner for damages. The lawsuit seeks $5 million in compensatory and punitive damages, citing emotional distress, physical assault, violation of civil rights, and ongoing trauma affecting her pregnancy and career. The diner's insurance company immediately begins settlement negotiations to avoid trial. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a leading expert on racial trauma and pregnancy, provides devastating testimony about the psychological impact of racially motivated violence on expectant mothers. The stress hormones released during such attacks can have lasting effects on both mother and child, she explains to federal investigators. This wasn't just an assault. It was an attack on this family's future generations. Prosecutor Amanda Foster, renowned for her successful prosecution of high-profile hate crimes, takes personal charge of the state case. Foster's team assembles overwhelming evidence including the viral videos, witness testimony, expert analysis of racial bias, and Brenda's documented history of racist behavior toward previous customers and co-workers. The investigation reveals this wasn't Brenda's first racially motivated incident. Former co-workers come forward with disturbing testimonies about her regular use of racial slurs and discriminatory treatment of minority customers. Security footage from previous months shows a clear pattern of providing inferior service to customers of color while treating white patrons with respect. Additional evidence emerges proving the diner's management knew about Brenda's racist behavior, but failed to act responsibly. Customer complaint records show at least 12 formal complaints about discriminatory treatment over the past 2 years, all dismissed by Cousin Tony without investigation or disciplinary action. Legal scholars across the nation note that this case could establish important precedents for prosecuting restaurant discrimination. Professor David Brooks of Emory Law School states, "This case demonstrates how seemingly minor service industry discrimination can escalate to violent assault when enabled by institutional indifference and racial prejudice." Against her attorney's urgent advice, Brenda rejects the prosecution's final plea offer of 3 years in state prison plus 2 years federal time. She maintains in a jailhouse interview that she was simply having a bad day and didn't mean anything racial. Her continued denial of racial motivation only strengthens the prosecution's hate crime case. The trial draws unprecedented national attention to Atlanta. The courtroom packs with civil rights activists, legal observers, and media representatives from major networks. Judge Patricia Williams maintains strict order as both sides present their cases to a diverse jury of 8 women and 4 men. Foster's opening statement focuses powerfully on a shocking display of racial hatred that traumatized an innocent family and violated the basic human dignity we all deserve. The prosecution methodically presents video evidence, witness testimony, and expert analysis that leaves no doubt about Brenda's motivations. Michael Brooks's testimony proves devastating for the defense as he calmly recounts witnessing the entire incident from beginning to end. Mrs. Washington's emotional account of watching a pregnant child get attacked for no reason other than the color of her skin moves several jurors to visible tears. Brenda's defense team attempts desperately to portray her as a victim of economic stress and personal problems, but the strategy backfires spectacularly when prosecutors reveal her stable middle-class background and employment history. The jury sees through attempts to excuse racially motivated violence with personal hardship claims. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returns guilty verdicts on all charges. The forewoman announces solemnly, "We find the defendant guilty of aggravated assault, civil rights violations, false imprisonment, and filing false police reports. The evidence was overwhelming and the defendant's actions absolutely inexcusable." Brenda collapses dramatically as the verdicts are read, but her tears fail to generate sympathy from anyone in the packed courtroom. Justice has spoken with unanimous clarity, and the consequences are about to match the severity of her crimes. 6 months later, the camera opens on Serena's cozy living room where afternoon sunlight streams through sheer curtains. She sits in a comfortable rocking chair, cradling her healthy newborn daughter, Justice Marie Thompson. The baby sleeps peacefully in her arms, tiny fingers curled around her mother's thumb. The morning news plays softly in the background, featuring a story about declining hate crimes in the Atlanta area following increased prosecutions. Justice's nursery displays framed photos from the trial, not as trophies, but as reminders of how far society has come and how far it still needs to go. James prepares breakfast in their new kitchen, humming quietly while scrambling eggs. The smell of fresh coffee mingles with baby powder and the promise of a better future. People often ask me if I regret going to that diner that day. Serena speaks directly to the camera in voiceover, her prosecutor's voice now softened with maternal wisdom. The truth is, what happened there was just one moment in a much larger story about justice and equality in America. The narrator explains how the case sparked broader change rippling across the Southeast. The Georgia legislature passed stronger hate crime legislation specifically addressing discrimination in public accommodations. Restaurant chains from Atlanta to Birmingham adopted zero-tolerance policies for discriminatory behavior, with mandatory bias training for all staff members. The Atlanta Police Department implemented new training protocols for responding to bias incidents, using Serena's case as a teaching tool. Captain Thompson now leads seminars on recognizing hate crimes and protecting victims' rights. His first-hand experience brings authenticity to lessons that might otherwise feel abstract to younger officers. Meanwhile, Brenda serves her sentence at Georgia Women's Correctional Institution, where she's required to attend racial sensitivity training and anger management classes twice weekly. Her family has struggled financially with her imprisonment, losing their home and filing for bankruptcy due to legal costs and the civil judgment. Her children, now in foster care, visit monthly under supervised conditions. The hardest part wasn't the physical assault, Serena continues, gently rocking Justice. It was realizing that someone could hate me so completely without knowing anything about me except the color of my skin. But it also showed me how many good people exist who refuse to let hatred win. Under new management, the Peachtree Diner has transformed into a symbol of redemption and change. Tony sold the establishment to a diverse group of local investors who renamed it Community Table. They host monthly civil rights forums and donate proceeds to local anti-discrimination organizations. A bronze plaque near the entrance reads, "A place where all are welcome, dignity is respected, and justice is served." The case propelled Serena's career to national prominence, leading to her promotion as chief of the Civil Rights Division. She now leads a team of federal prosecutors dedicated to combating hate crimes across the Southeast. Her office has achieved a 96% conviction rate on civil rights cases, sending a clear message that bias-motivated violence will face swift justice. James and I decided to name our daughter Justice because we want her to understand that fairness isn't automatic. It's something we must fight for every day. Serena explains, her voice filled with quiet determination. She'll grow up knowing that her mother faced hatred and chose love, faced violence and chose peace, faced injustice and chose to fight for what's right. The narrator addresses systemic issues directly. This case wasn't just about one waitress's prejudice. It revealed how quickly discrimination can escalate to violence when left unchecked. But it also demonstrated how swift justice and community action can create lasting change. Every viral video of injustice becomes an opportunity for education, every prosecution a deterrent, and every conviction a step toward equality. Statistical overlays show the case's measurable impact. Reports of restaurant discrimination increased by 300% nationwide, not because incidents rose, but because victims felt empowered to come forward. Prosecutions of public accommodation discrimination doubled. Most importantly, bystander intervention training programs expanded to over 500 communities across America. If this story moved you, I encourage you to examine your own biases and speak up when you witness discrimination. Serena addresses viewers directly. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the pursuit of justice. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. The camera focuses on baby Justice sleeping peacefully while her parents watch with joy. The message crystallizes perfectly. From trauma can come triumph. From injustice can emerge justice, and from hatred can grow hope. The cycle of justice continues with each new generation that learns to stand up for what's right. Remember, silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Your voice matters, your actions count, and your courage can change lives. When you witness injustice happening right in front of you, will you be the person who records it, reports it, and stands up for what's right? Or will you be the person who looks away and lets hatred win? The final frame shows Justice Thompson, now a healthy 6-month-old, playing happily while her parents watch protectively. The choice is yours, and that choice defines who you are.
The story you heard today wasn't cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened. At Black Voices Uncut, we believe that's the only way truth can live. If you felt something, hit like, comment, and your reaction, and subscribe. Every week, we bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.
A black woman with a broken arm was working 3 registers alone. The other cashiers, all white, stood chatting by empty lanes, their blue name tags gleaming under fluorescent lights. Meanwhile, Keisha's red name tag caught the sweat dripping down her face as she struggled to scan groceries one-handed, her cast bumping painfully against each item. CEO Michael Davis watched from aisle 7, his shopping cart forgotten. The scheduling board behind checkout told a story that made his blood run cold. Blue dots next to white employees, red dots next to every black and Latino name. Performance standards don't change because of personal circumstances, announced store manager Taylor, loud enough for the growing line of frustrated customers to hear. He was timing Keisha with his phone while she fumbled with heavy milk jugs. A customer muttered, "This is ridiculous." Another pulled out their phone to record. But what Davis saw next in that color-coded scheduling system would expose a conspiracy so systematic, so calculated, that it reached into 23 stores and destroyed hundreds of careers. The woman with the broken arm was just the beginning. The morning shift at Riverside Grocery began like any other, with 23 employees clocking in across different departments. The Atlanta suburb location served a diverse community, and the workforce reflected that diversity. Nearly 70% of the staff were people of color, many of whom had worked there for years. Keisha Williams arrived at 6 a.m. sharp, her cast still fresh from last week's accident. She'd slipped on ice in the parking lot after her evening shift, breaking her radius bone cleanly. The emergency room doctor had been clear: light duty for 6 weeks, no heavy lifting, minimal repetitive motion. She'd brought the medical note to store manager Robert Taylor the next day. "I understand your situation," Taylor had said, barely glancing at the paperwork, "but we're short-staffed." The schedule is the schedule. Now, 3 days later, she was assigned to the busiest register during morning rush hour. The electronic scanner beeped incessantly as she struggled to maneuver items with her left hand. Milk jugs, watermelons, cases of soda. Each beep sent a small jolt of pain up her arm. Behind her, the scheduling board dominated the break room wall. The color-coded system had appeared 6 months ago, introduced by District Manager Patricia Stevens as part of her Efficiency Optimization Program. Blue dots marked some names, red dots marked others. The pattern wasn't random, though few employees had noticed yet. Of the 8 cashiers scheduled today, 5 bore red dots, all minorities. The 3 with blue dots were white employees, assigned to the slower lanes with express checkout limits. Damon Thompson stocked shelves in grocery, his red dot corresponding to the overnight shift he'd been moved to without explanation. Sarah Johnson, a white college student, had a blue dot and worked prime afternoon hours that fit her class schedule perfectly. "Keisha, line's backing up," called Assistant Manager Jennifer Walsh, pointing to the growing queue of impatient customers. "Yes, ma'am, doing my best," Keisha replied, sweat beading on her forehead despite the store's air conditioning. A elderly customer noticed her cast. "Honey, should you be working with that arm?" "I'm managing fine, thank you," Keisha smiled, though her good hand trembled slightly as she reached for another item. Taylor appeared from his office, clipboard in hand. He glanced at the scheduling board, made a note, then walked past Keisha's overwhelmed register without stopping. His focus seemed entirely on the numbers: transaction times, items per minute, customer throughput. The human cost didn't factor into his calculations. By her lunch break, Keisha had processed 127 customers compared to the 40 to 45 handled by her Blue Dot colleagues. The disparity wasn't accidental, but she couldn't yet see the system behind it. None of them could. The patterns were there, hidden in plain sight on that color-coded board. Someone just needed to decode what the colors really meant. The afternoon rush brought chaos to Keisha's register. A line of 15 customers snaked back into the produce section while neighboring lanes remained lightly staffed. Her cast had grown heavy during the morning, and now each scan sent shooting pain up to her shoulder. "This is ridiculous," muttered a customer halfway through the line. "Why is the injured girl handling the longest line?" At Register 3, Sarah Johnson chatted casually with her single customer, a regular who stopped by for coffee and a newspaper. Her Blue Dot assignment ensured a steady but manageable flow. At Register 5, another Blue Dot employee had been sent on an extended break. Keisha's scanner jammed on a barcode. She tried to fix it left-handed, awkwardly manipulating the device while her cast bumped against the counter. The delay triggered angry sighs from waiting customers. "Can you move any slower?" snapped a man clutching energy drinks and cigarettes. "I apologize, sir. Technical difficulty." Keisha's voice remained steady, professional, though her face flushed with embarrassment. Store manager Taylor emerged from aisle 12, surveyed the scene, and walked directly to Keisha's register. But instead of offering help or calling for backup, he pulled out his phone and began timing her transactions. "Williams, your speed is below standard," he announced loudly enough for customers to hear. "Corporate expects 23 items per minute. You're at 18 inches. Several customers turned to stare. Keisha's face burned with humiliation as she tried to work faster, her cast knocking against products as she struggled with one-handed scanning. "Maybe if you gave her some help instead of criticism," suggested a middle-aged woman in line. Taylor ignored the comment. "Performance standards don't change because of personal circumstances. We have quotas to meet." From her position at the express lane, Sarah Johnson watched the scene unfold with growing discomfort. She'd been assigned the lightest workload despite being the newest employee. The unfairness was becoming impossible to ignore. As Keisha's line grew longer, District Manager Patricia Stevens appeared from the administrative office upstairs. She observed the situation with clinical detachment, occasionally making notes on her tablet. When a customer complained loudly about the wait, Stevens simply nodded and moved on without intervention. The breaking point came when Keisha dropped a jar of pasta sauce. It shattered across the floor, splashing her legs with tomato and glass. She stared at the mess, her composure finally cracking. "I can clean this up," she whispered, starting to kneel. "No," said the woman who'd defended her earlier. "Absolutely not. You're injured." She turned to Taylor. "Get someone else to clean this up and give this woman proper support." Taylor's response was swift and cold. "Williams, this counts as a safety incident. I'll need to write you up." The customers erupted in protests, but Keisha simply nodded, accepting the unfair consequence. She'd learned that fighting back only made things worse. The system seemed designed to break her down, though she couldn't understand why. In the break room, the scheduling board's pattern became clearer to anyone paying attention. Every Red Dot employee faced similar struggles: impossible schedules, inadequate support, scrutiny for every mistake. The Blue Dot workers enjoyed reasonable expectations, flexible hours, and patience for their learning curves. The injustice was systematic, deliberate, and devastating. Keisha was just one casualty in a broader war being waged through spreadsheets and scheduling algorithms. As she clocked out that evening, exhausted and demoralized, she had no idea that corporate leadership was about to learn the truth about those colored dots. CEO Michael Davis couldn't shake the image of that scheduling board. 3 days had passed since his shopping trip to Riverside Grocery, but the pattern of colored dots haunted his thoughts during board meetings and strategy sessions. At his corner office in downtown Atlanta, Davis pulled up the store's employee records on his computer. The diversity statistics looked good on paper. 68% minority workforce, competitive wages, standard benefits package. Everything appeared normal until he cross-referenced the scheduling data. The patterns emerged immediately. Red Dot employees averaged 47 hours per week compared to 32 hours for Blue Dot workers. Overtime was concentrated among minorities, while white employees maintained part-time status that preserved their benefit eligibility without burning them out. The disparity was mathematically precise, too organized to be coincidental. Davis's assistant knocked on his door. "Your 3 p.m. is here." "Send them away." "I need an hour." His fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling reports from all 23 Riverside locations. The pattern replicated across every store. Color-coded scheduling that systematically overworked minority employees while protecting white staff. The efficiency metrics that corporate celebrated were built on the backs of workers like Keisha Williams. A memory surfaced from his own past. 25 years ago, fresh out of college, he'd worked retail to pay off student loans. The manager had given him prime shifts and patient training while his black coworker Jerome got overnight stock duty and constant criticism. Davis had assumed it was performance-based. Now he recognized the pattern he'd been blind to then. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "Still coming to dinner with the Johnsons tonight?" Davis stared at the message. How many dinner parties had he attended while employees like Keisha struggled with broken arms and impossible schedules? How many board meetings had celebrated efficiency improvements that were really just sophisticated discrimination? The legal implications were staggering. If this system was intentional, Riverside faced massive liability: discrimination lawsuits, federal investigations, criminal charges for civil rights violations. But more than legal consequences, this was a moral failure at the highest levels. He called his head of security. "Jim, I need you to set up a cover identity for me. Full backstory, fake references, the works." "Sir, I'm going undercover in one of our stores. This has to be completely confidential. No one else can know, not even the board." "What position?" Davis thought about the scheduling board, about Keisha's exhausted face, about the systematic nature of the injustice. "Night janitor. I want to see how this place really operates when management thinks no one important is watching." The risk was enormous. If discovered, the media would crucify him for corporate theater. If the discrimination was as bad as the data suggested, the legal exposure could destroy the company. But doing nothing wasn't an option anymore. That evening, Davis skipped dinner with the Johnsons. Instead, he practiced his backstory in the mirror. David Miller, laid-off construction worker, desperate for any job that paid the bills. He studied the employee handbook, memorized store protocols, and prepared to see his company through the eyes of the people at the bottom of the hierarchy. Tomorrow, he would discover whether those colored dots represented conscious evil or bureaucratic negligence. Either way, the system was about to face its reckoning. David Miller clocked in for his first night shift at 10 p.m., wearing a borrowed uniform that hung loose on his frame. The store transformed after closing time. Fluorescent lights dimmed to half power, overnight crew emerging from break rooms like workers in a different world. "You're the new guy," said Damon Thompson, a tall black man who'd been moved to night stocking 6 months earlier. "Fair warning, they work us hard here." Davis nodded, adjusting his fake name tag. "Need the job. I'll do whatever it takes." The scheduling board loomed over the break room, its colored dots more ominous in the dim lighting. Davis counted 12 overnight workers, 10 with red dots, 2 with blue. The Blue Dot employees were assigned to cake decorating and inventory counts. Everyone else faced the physical demands of unloading trucks and restocking shelves. Damon handed him a box cutter. "Truck comes in at midnight. 3,000 cases to unload, sort, and stock before 6 a.m. Management times everything. At 11:47 p.m., a massive delivery truck backed up to the loading dock. The overnight supervisor, a white man named Kevin Bradley with a blue dot by his name, checked his clipboard and pointed to the trailer. "Gentlemen, we've got dog food, canned goods, and frozen items tonight. Standard pace is 500 cases per hour. Let's move." Davis joined the line of workers passing boxes from truck to store. Within minutes, he understood why Damon looked exhausted. The pace was relentless. Lift, pivot, stack, repeat. His back ached after 20 minutes. "These men did this every night." "How long you been on nights?" Davis asked Damon during a water break. 6 months. Used to work days until the new efficiency program started. They moved all the us experienced guys to overnight, said it was a promotion. "What about the day crew now?" Damon's laugh held no humor. "Bunch of new hires, white kids mostly. They get training time, patient supervisors, normal schedules. We get this." At 2 a.m., District Manager Patricia Stevens arrived for what she called a spot inspection. She moved through the store with military precision, checking displays, examining inventory counts, timing workers with a stopwatch app. Davis kept his head down as she approached his section. Through his peripheral vision, he watched her observe Damon struggling with a particularly heavy case of dog food. "Thompson, you're moving too slowly," Stevens announced. 15 cases behind schedule. "Yes, ma'am. Trying to be careful with the stacking. Careful doesn't meet quotas. Speed up or we'll need to discuss your future here." Stevens made a note on her tablet, then moved on without acknowledgement when Damon worked faster despite obvious strain. When she passed Davis, a presumed new white employee, she simply nodded politely. At 3:30 a.m., Davis volunteered to empty trash bins near the administrative offices upstairs. The door to Stevens's office was ajar, revealing file cabinets marked "Personnel Confidential." His janitor's keyring included a master key that opened most interior doors. Inside the office, he found what he was looking for. A 3-ring binder labeled Scheduling Optimization Phase 2 sat on Stevens's desk. He photographed each page with his phone, hands trembling as the scope of the system became clear. The colored dots weren't random. Blue indicated retention priority employees, those deemed worth investing in for long-term growth. Red marked expendable resources, workers to be maximized for short-term productivity, then cycled out when they burned out or complained. The documentation was meticulous. Stevens had tracked performance metrics, turnover rates, and what she called compliance indicators for each employee category. Red dot workers faced impossible standards, inadequate breaks, and progressive discipline for minor infractions. Blue dot employees received coaching, flexible scheduling, and second chances for mistakes. A separate folder contained correspondence with other district managers, sharing best practices for the color-coding system. The program had spread to 15 stores, affecting over 400 employees. The smoking gun was a congratulatory email from Regional Director Thomas Wilson, praising Stevens for innovative labor cost management that had improved profit margins by 12% across her district. She'd received a $15,000 bonus for implementing what the company internally called strategic workforce optimization. Davis photographed everything, his anger growing with each page. This wasn't unconscious bias or poor management. It was systematic, documented discrimination designed to extract maximum value from minority workers while protecting and nurturing white employees. By dawn, he'd seen enough. The overnight crew stumbled toward the time clock, exhausted after 8 hours of punishment disguised as employment. Damon could barely lift his arms to clock out. "Same time tomorrow night," Damon said to Davis. "If you survive that long." Davis nodded, though he knew tomorrow would bring a very different kind of work. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and about to destroy Patricia Stevens's carefully constructed system of exploitation. The colored dots were about to lose their power forever. Davis returned to his corporate office at 8 a.m., still wearing his janitor's uniform. His secretary looked puzzled as he rushed past her desk, but he'd explain everything later. First, he needed to review the photographs and prepare for what would be the most difficult conversation of his career. The images from Stevens's office told a story of calculated cruelty. Each document built upon the last, creating an undeniable pattern of racial discrimination disguised as business efficiency. The scheduling optimization manual read like a playbook for legal discrimination, sophisticated enough to avoid obvious civil rights violations, systematic enough to devastate lives. Page 12 detailed the psychological strategy behind the color system. Red Dot employees faced escalating pressure designed to force voluntary resignations, avoiding the legal complexities of termination. Blue Dot workers received investment and development, ensuring loyalty and reducing turnover in positions the company valued. A spreadsheet tracked the results. 47 minority employees had quit in the past year across Stevens's district, citing workplace stress or better opportunities elsewhere. Meanwhile, white employee retention reached 94%, with most receiving promotions or wage increases. The bonus structure was the most damning evidence. Stevens earned additional compensation based on labor cost optimization, a euphemism for squeezing maximum productivity from expendable workers while minimizing investment in their development or well-being. Davis's hands shook as he read an email exchange between Stevens and another district manager, sharing tactics for managing problematic employees without creating legal liability. The language was coded but clear: make conditions so difficult that minorities would quit rather than file discrimination complaints. At 10 a.m., his phone rang. Stevens's name appeared on the caller ID. "Mr. Davis?" "Patricia Stevens calling. I wanted to update you on our district performance metrics." Davis activated his phone's recording function. "Go ahead, Patricia." "Excellent news. We're exceeding productivity targets by 18% this quarter. The new scheduling protocols have been incredibly effective at maximizing our human resources." "Tell me more about these protocols." Stevens's voice grew confident, proud even. "Well, we've implemented a tiered system for employee management. Different categories of workers receive different levels of support based on their strategic value to the organization." "How do you determine strategic value?" "Several factors: potential for advancement, cultural fit, long-term retention probability. We focus our development resources on employees most likely to contribute to company growth." Davis felt sick. "And the other employees?" "We maintain appropriate productivity standards for all staff members. Some individuals require more structured oversight to meet performance expectations. It's basic workforce management." "These productivity standards, are they applied equally across all demographics?" A pause. "Of course. We follow all employment laws and company policies." The lie came so smoothly that Davis realized Stevens might actually believe her own rationalization. She'd convinced herself that systematic discrimination was just smart business. After ending the call, Davis reviewed the recording alongside the documents. Stevens had just admitted to tiered treatment of employees based on subjective criteria that aligned perfectly with racial categories. Combined with the written evidence, her own words provided the final piece of an airtight case. His legal team would have a field day with this material. The Department of Labor would launch investigations. The media would scrutinize every aspect of the company's employment practices. But Davis wasn't thinking about legal exposure or public relations disasters. He was thinking about Keisha Williams, working with a broken arm while white colleagues enjoyed light duty. He was thinking about Damon Thompson, demoted to night shifts for the crime of being experienced and black. He was thinking about 400 employees across 15 stores who'd been systematically exploited by a system designed to break their spirits. The evidence was overwhelming. Now came the harder task: dismantling a system of oppression that had infected his company at the highest levels and ensuring it could never return. Justice was about to be served, with Patricia Stevens's own words providing the soundtrack to her downfall. At 2 p.m. on a busy Tuesday afternoon, CEO Michael Davis walked through the front doors of Riverside Grocery in his business suit, carrying a folder of evidence that would change everything. Customers continued shopping, unaware they were about to witness corporate justice in action. Keisha Williams stood at Register 1, her cast now covered in colorful signatures from loyal customers who'd grown fond of her despite the system working against her. She didn't recognize the well-dressed man approaching her checkout lane. "Excuse me," Davis said quietly. "Is your store manager available?" "Yes, sir, let me call him." Keisha reached for the phone, but Davis gently stopped her. "Actually, I'd prefer to make an announcement first. Do you know how to use the store intercom?" Something in his tone made her pause. "Sir, are you—" "My name is Michael Davis. I'm the CEO of this company, and I need to address your entire staff immediately." Keisha's eyes widened. Around them, other employees had noticed the conversation. Sarah Johnson at Register 3 looked over curiously. Damon Thompson, stalking nearby shelves, moved closer to listen. Davis picked up the courtesy phone and dialed the intercom code. His voice echoed through every corner of the store. "Attention Riverside Grocery employees and customers. This is Michael Davis, CEO of this company. I need all staff members to gather at the front of the store immediately. This is not a drill." The reaction was immediate. Employees emerged from aisles, offices, and storage rooms. Store manager Taylor hurried from the pharmacy section, his face pale with confusion. District Manager Stevens descended the stairs from the administrative offices, her expression shifting from surprise to alarm as she recognized Davis. Within 3 minutes, 22 employees had assembled near the checkout lanes. Curious customers formed a loose circle, sensing drama unfolding. Davis climbed onto a checkout counter to address the crowd. 6 months ago, this store implemented a new scheduling system using colored dots to categorize employees. I'm here because that system represents systematic racial discrimination that ends today. Stevens stepped forward, her voice tight with controlled panic. "Mr. Davis, there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we could discuss this privately." "No more private discussions, Patricia. No more coded language or efficiency metrics that hide prejudice behind spreadsheets." Davis opened his folder and pulled out the first document, a blown-up photo of the scheduling board with its colored dots clearly visible. Red dots mark minority employees for exploitation. Impossible schedules, dangerous working conditions, progressive discipline for minor infractions. Blue dots mark white employees for protection and development. Different standards, different opportunities, different futures, based solely on race. The employees stared at the board they'd seen every day for months, finally understanding its true purpose. Damon Thompson's hands clenched into fists. Sarah Johnson covered her mouth in shock. Keisha Williams felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "That's absolutely untrue," Stevens protested. "The color system is purely operational." "Then explain this." Davis held up a printed email. "Your message to Regional Director Wilson, celebrating a $15,000 bonus for innovative labor cost management through strategic workforce optimization." Your own words, Patricia. Stevens's face drained of color. Several employees gasped as they realized the scope of the deception. "And this." Davis played the recorded phone conversation on his cell phone, speakers at maximum volume. Stevens's voice filled the store. "We focus our development resources on employees most likely to contribute to company growth. Some individuals require more structured oversight to meet performance expectations." The crowd erupted. Employees shouted questions and accusations. Customers pulled out phones to record the confrontation. Stevens looked around desperately for escape routes that no longer existed. Store manager Taylor tried to control the situation. "Everyone calm down. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." "The explanation is simple," Davis interrupted. "Robert Taylor, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." Taylor's mouth fell open. You can't. I can, and I am. Patricia Stevens, same applies to you. Your systematic discrimination has caused immeasurable harm to hardworking people who deserved better from this company. Stevens finally found her voice, desperation making her reckless. This is an overreaction. Every business optimizes labor costs. We followed all legal guidelines. Legal and moral are not the same thing, Davis replied. You created a system designed to break people's spirits and force them to quit. You documented it, celebrated it, and spread it to other stores. That ends now. Security officers arrived to escort both terminated managers from the building. As Stevens was led away, she turned back toward the crowd of employees she'd manipulated for months. This won't stick, she called out. Corporate will reverse this decision when they see the productivity numbers. Davis's response was heard throughout the store. I am corporate, Patricia, and these people's dignity is worth more than your productivity metrics. As the security team disappeared through the exit doors, the assembled employees stood in stunned silence. The system that had controlled their lives for 6 months had just crumbled in 15 minutes. But Davis wasn't finished. The real work was just beginning. With Stevens and Taylor gone, Davis faced 22 employees whose trust in management had been shattered. The store fell unnaturally quiet as customers resumed shopping, whispering about the drama they'd witnessed. I know you have questions, Davis began, his voice carrying across the checkout area. You have every right to be angry, confused, and skeptical of anything I say. The system failed you. I failed you by not seeing this sooner. Damon Thompson stepped forward. So what happens now? You fire 2 people and everything's supposed to be okay? Nothing about this is okay, Davis replied. Firing those managers was just the first step. Real change requires rebuilding everything from the ground up. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Jim, I need the regional HR director at Riverside Grocery within the hour. Also have legal send 3 employment attorneys and someone from our diversity and inclusion department. Hanging up, he turned back to the employees. Every single one of you will have the opportunity to file complaints, seek compensation for damages, and participate in designing new policies to ensure this never happens again. Sarah Johnson raised her hand tentatively. What about those of us who benefited from the system? I got good schedules because of my blue dot. The honesty in her question impressed Davis. Sarah, the fact that you recognize the unfairness shows integrity. Moving forward, good schedules will be earned through seniority, performance, and need, not skin color. He walked to the scheduling board and ripped down the color-coded chart, tearing it into pieces. This poisonous system ends today. We're implementing new scheduling software with built-in fairness algorithms. Every shift assignment will be documented and reviewable. An older black woman from the deli section spoke up. My name's Dorothy Miller. I've been here 8 years and I've watched good people get ground down by this place. How do we know you won't just find subtler ways to discriminate? Davis appreciated her directness. Dorothy, you don't know. You have no reason to trust corporate promises after what you've experienced. That's why we're creating an independent oversight board with real power to investigate complaints and make changes. He outlined the reforms as employees gathered closer. Anonymous reporting systems, regular bias audits, promotion criteria based on measurable qualifications, and financial compensation for employees who'd suffered under the discriminatory system. Keisha Williams, Davis called out. Please step forward. Keisha approached hesitantly, still wearing her name tag and cast. Effective immediately, I'm promoting you to assistant manager of this store. Your salary increases to $52,000 annually with full management benefits. The announcement drew surprised applause from her co-workers. Keisha stared at Davis in shock. Sir, I appreciate this, but I don't want charity. This isn't charity. For 6 months, you've demonstrated leadership under impossible circumstances. You've shown grace under pressure, loyalty to this company despite its failures, and dedication that puts most managers to shame. You've earned this position. Tears welled in Keisha's eyes as the reality sank in. Her colleagues cheered, and several customers who'd witnessed her struggles over recent weeks joined the applause. Damon Thompson, Davis continued, you're promoted to department manager for grocery. Your experience and work ethic have been wasted on overnight shifts designed to hide your talents. Damon's stoic expression cracked slightly. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. You already haven't let us down. The company let you down. Davis spent the next hour meeting with each employee individually, reviewing their experiences under the discriminatory system and discussing career goals that had been systematically blocked. The conversations revealed the full scope of Stevens's damage: missed promotions, denied training opportunities, unfair disciplinary actions, and deliberate scheduling conflicts with family obligations. By 4 p.m., the HR team arrived with attorneys and policy experts. They set up temporary offices in the break room to begin formal interviews and documentation of discrimination claims. Each employee would have legal representation provided by the company. The new store manager arrived shortly after, Maria Rodriguez, a respected leader from another district with a track record of developing diverse teams and creating inclusive workplace cultures. Maria will be leading the transition, Davis announced. She's been briefed on everything that happened here, and she has full authority to implement changes immediately. Rodriguez addressed the staff with warmth and determination. We're not just changing policies, we're changing culture. Every decision will be transparent, every opportunity will be fairly distributed, and every person will be treated with dignity. As the afternoon wore on, employees began sharing stories they'd kept buried for months. The break room transformed into a support group as workers realized they weren't alone in their experiences. Sarah Johnson apologized tearfully to colleagues for not speaking up when she witnessed unfair treatment. Damon Thompson mentored younger employees who'd been afraid to report problems. The scheduling board was replaced with a new system showing shift assignments based on seniority, availability, and rotation fairness. No colors, no codes, no hidden meanings, just transparent scheduling that treated everyone equally. By closing time, the store felt different. Employees walked taller, spoke more freely, and looked at their workplace with hope instead of resignation. The toxic culture that had festered for months was beginning to heal. But the transformation extended beyond Riverside Grocery. Davis's phone buzzed with updates from legal teams investigating all 23 stores in Stevens's network. The discriminatory system was being dismantled everywhere it had taken root, with similar reforms and accountability measures implemented company-wide. The colored dots were gone forever, replaced by policies that valued every employee's contribution regardless of their background. Justice had been served, but more importantly, a better future was being built. 2 weeks after the confrontation, the atmosphere at Riverside Grocery had transformed completely. The break room buzz during shift changes reflected genuine camaraderie rather than whispered complaints about unfair treatment. Keisha Williams sat in her new office, a small space behind the customer service counter that she'd helped redesign. The scheduling software on her computer screen showed a beautiful sight: fair distribution of hours, reasonable workload expectations, and transparent criteria for every assignment decision. Her cast had come off the previous day, and she flexed her fingers while reviewing performance reports that actually meant something now. Under the old system, metrics had been manipulated to justify predetermined conclusions. Now they tracked genuine productivity improvements and employee satisfaction. Damon Thompson knocked on her doorframe. "Got a minute, boss?" The word boss still felt strange, but Keisha was growing into the role naturally. "Always have time for you, Damon." "What's on your mind?" "The night crew's working great together, but I wanted to talk about cross-training opportunities. Some of the day shift folks are interested in learning inventory management." It was exactly the kind of conversation that would have been impossible under Stevens's regime. Employee development had been reserved for blue dot workers only. Now everyone had access to training, advancement opportunities, and career mentorship. "Let's set up a meeting with Maria," Keisha suggested. "She's been pushing for more cross-training programs." Store manager Maria Rodriguez had exceeded everyone's expectations. Rather than imposing corporate mandates, she'd listened to employees' ideas for improving operations and customer service. The store's performance had actually improved since eliminating the discriminatory practices, proof that fairness and efficiency could coexist. Sarah Johnson appeared in the doorway, holding a clipboard. "Sorry to interrupt, but we've got the customer satisfaction surveys from last week." "Come in, Sarah." "What do they show?" "Best scores in our district. Customers are commenting on how happy the staff seems, how helpful everyone is. One person wrote, 'Whatever changed here, keep doing it.'" The three of them smiled at the feedback. Customer service had improved dramatically when employees no longer felt demoralized and unsupported. People who'd been written up for minor infractions under the old system were now receiving praise for their dedication and professionalism. Dorothy Miller joined the impromptu meeting, carrying a tray of sandwiches from the deli. "Thought you all might be hungry." "We made extra for the afternoon crew." The simple gesture represented a broader cultural shift. Employees looked out for each other now, sharing resources and celebrating successes together. The toxic environment that had pitted workers against each other was being replaced by genuine teamwork. "Dorothy, how's the new scheduling working for your department?" Maria asked. "Much better. People can actually plan their lives now. My grandson's got a school play next week, and I know I can attend because the schedule's fair and predictable." These small victories meant everything. Under Stephen's system, family obligations had been treated as inconveniences to be worked around or ignored. Now they were factored into scheduling decisions with empathy and flexibility. CEO Michael Davis arrived for his weekly check-in, but instead of the formal meetings common in corporate visits, he joined the break room conversation. Employees had grown comfortable with his presence, seeing him as the leader who'd dismantled injustice rather than a distant executive to fear. "How's everyone settling into the changes?" he asked, accepting a sandwich from Dorothy's tray. "It's like working at a completely different store," Damon replied. "People actually want to come to work now." "The best part is feeling valued," Keisha added. "Not just as a number on a productivity chart, but as a person with ideas and potential." Davis nodded, remembering his own retail experience decades earlier. That's how every workplace should function. "I'm sorry it took so long to get here." "You got here when it mattered most," Sarah said. "That's what counts." The conversation continued for another hour, covering everything from new employee orientation programs to community outreach initiatives. The store was becoming more than just a workplace. It was developing into a supportive community that extended beyond business hours. As Davis prepared to leave, he noticed the wall where the color-coded scheduling board had once hung. In its place was a photo collage of employee achievements: Keisha's management promotion, Damon's successful inventory reduction program, Sarah's customer service recognition, Dorothy's 20-year service award from the previous month. The display represented hope, dignity, and the simple truth that every person deserved respect and opportunity regardless of their background. The colored dots had been replaced by something immeasurably more valuable: a workplace culture built on fairness, transparency, and human decency. Walking to his car, Davis reflected on the transformation he'd witnessed. Dismantling discrimination had been the easy part. It required only determination and authority. Building a better culture required ongoing commitment from everyone involved, and he was proud of how his employees had embraced that challenge. The real victory wasn't in the policies they'd changed or the managers they'd fired. It was in the laughter he heard from the break room, the confidence in Keisha's voice, and the genuine teamwork that had replaced fear and division. This was what justice looked like in practice. Not perfect, but constantly improving, with every person's dignity intact and their potential unleashed. 6 months later, Riverside Grocery had become a model for the entire company. Corporate executives from other districts visited regularly to study the transformation and implement similar reforms in their own stores. Keisha Williams stood before a packed conference room at corporate headquarters, presenting the store's success metrics to the board of directors. Customer satisfaction had reached 94%. Employee turnover had dropped to industry-leading levels, and productivity had increased 15%, proving definitively that fairness and profitability weren't opposing forces. The key insight, she explained, clicking to her final slide, is that people perform better when they're treated with dignity and given genuine opportunities to grow. The old system wasted human potential on an industrial scale. Board members asked thoughtful questions about scaling the reforms company-wide. The Riverside model was being implemented across all locations, with independent oversight committees monitoring compliance and investigating complaints. Damon Thompson had been promoted again, now overseeing inventory management for the entire district. Dorothy Miller was training new deli managers across 3 states. Sarah Johnson was completing her business degree with company-sponsored tuition assistance, preparing for management roles. The legal settlement with affected employees had totaled $2.3 million, but the real compensation came through restored dignity and career opportunities that had been systematically denied. 7 former Riverside employees were now in management positions at other stores. Patricia Stevens faced federal discrimination charges and was banned from management roles in retail. Her efficiency optimization system had been exposed as a textbook case of disparate impact discrimination, studied now in business schools and civil rights law courses. CEO Michael Davis reflected on the journey during his final visit to the store. The scheduling board displayed a rainbow of shifts distributed fairly among employees of all backgrounds. The break room buzzed with conversations about career goals, training opportunities, and genuine workplace challenges, not survival strategies for navigating discrimination. The hardest part, he told reporters who'd gathered to cover the anniversary of the confrontation, was admitting that sophisticated systems can perpetuate ancient prejudices. We convinced ourselves that data-driven decisions were automatically fair, but data without conscience is just mathematical bigotry. The store had become a symbol of corporate accountability and systematic reform. But Davis knew the real victory belonged to employees like Keisha, who'd maintained their dignity and professionalism despite facing institutional discrimination designed to break their spirits. As he prepared to leave, Davis noticed a new addition to the employee achievement wall. A framed photo of that infamous scheduling board with its colored dots, accompanied by a plaque reading, "Never Again," a reminder of what we overcame together. The image served as both warning and inspiration, proof that ordinary people could dismantle systems of oppression when leaders chose courage over convenience and justice over profit margins. If you've witnessed discrimination in your workplace, document everything. Screenshot unfair policies, record conversations when legal, save emails that reveal bias. Your evidence could save hundreds of careers and transform an entire organization. Don't wait for someone else to speak up. The colored dots in your workplace might be invisible, but their impact on real people's lives is devastating. Be the person who refuses to stay silent when systems of injustice hide behind corporate efficiency. Change happens when ordinary employees and principled leaders work together to demand better. The scheduling board at Riverside Grocery is gone forever. Help ensure that similar systems of discrimination disappear from workplaces everywhere. Document, report, demand accountability. Your voice matters more than you know.
One story can wake up a crowd. One moment of clarity can crack years of silence. At Beat Stories, we find those moments, and we share them loud and clear. If this made you think, hit subscribe. This is just the beginning.